In this film, Neşet Ertaş is at your age. Do you want to be friends with him? Hello friends, I am the famous folk poet, the last representative of the Abdal tradition, the Plectrum of Moorland, Neşet Ertaş. Would you like to know my life story? I was born in 1938 in Kırtıllar village of Çiçekdağ district of Kırşehir, one of the first cities that come to mind when the word Moorland is mentioned. My mother's name is Döne. My father's name is Muharrem. Actually, you all know my father, Turkish folk music artist Muharrem Ertaş, famous for his bozlaks, uzun hava, and playing saz. He was one of the representatives of the Abdal tradition and instilled this tradition in me from my childhood. The Abdals are a Turkmen community who migrated from Central Asia to Anatolia centuries ago. Music, poetry and fairy tales occupy an important place in the daily life of Abdals, who led a nomadic life. Abdals who have a natural talent for music composed and sang the poems of folk poets such as Pir Sultan Abdal, Karacaoğlan, Dadaloğlu, and handed these works down from generations to generations. My father was also an artist who continued this tradition. On the one hand, he would sing the poems and folk songs that he heard from his elders. On the other hand, he would compose and make folk songs. He used to earn a living by playing saz and singing folk songs at weddings. I used to go to wedding halls with my father from an early age. We used to play saz and sing folk songs like our ancestors who played the instrument and sang folk songs for centuries for the festivity and happiness of our people. Both my father and I have continued this tradition throughout our lives. My father, who saw my interest and talent in music when I was still very young, tried to convey almost everything he knew about music to me. I took my first music lessons from him. I started to play many musical instruments such as cumbuş, violin, cymbal, and darbuka. But I always wanted to play the saz in my heart. I wanted to enter people's hearts and express my feelings by playing saz and singing folk songs. That's why I took my saz and set off for Istanbul to work. I was 15 years old. I was seeing Istanbul for the first time. It was a big and crowded city. Maybe there were hundreds of musicians like me who were trying to make a living with music. At first, I was afraid to see if I could make it. Without wasting any time, I started looking for a job. With my instruments in my hand, I went to a record company in Sirkeci and said with some hesitation that I was looking for a job. They wanted to listen to my saz playing, so I took out my instrument, played it, and sang a bozlak. They liked it so much. They were so impressed that they immediately wanted to make a record for me. In those years, technologies such as CD and cassette were not developed yet. Releasing a disc was important to musicians. Thus, my first disc was released in 1957. On my first disc, I sang a folk song of my father called Neden Garip Garip Ötersin Bülbül. It was greatly appreciated. This is how my career in music began. At the same time, I continued to sing at weddings, and I also making stage programs. After all, it was our tradition. However, I still couldn't get used to Istanbul completely. That's why I returned to Kırşehir first. After staying here for a short time, I went to Ankara to continue my music life. My journey to Ankara is very important to me. Because I performed my music here for many years, I started to be recognized and adopted. First, I made a live folk song program on Ankara radio. At that time, because TV, internet and etc. did not exist, radios were very common. There would be live song and folk song programs on radios. Thanks to these programs I made on the radio, my name began to be heard throughout the country. and my reputation began to increase. On the other hand, I continued to make records, play saz at weddings and give concerts. One day, during a concert, I had a discomfort in my hand. From the doctors who examined my health, I learned that I was in danger of not being able to play the saz again. For this reason, I went to Germany for treatment in 1976 and lived there for 27 years. During this time, I continued my musical life in Europe. I sang folk songs at the weddings of Turks who had gone to Europe as workers before, gave concerts, produced records and cassettes. Thus, my fame had spread to Europe. Moreover, not only the Turks but everyone who listened was affected by my voice and my music. I managed to popularize Turkish folk music to the whole world. In 2003, I could not resist the intense insistence from my country, and I returned to Turkey and continued my music life here. In 2006, I was given the Outstanding Service Award by the Turkish Grand National Assembly. I have been included in the Living Human Treasures, which includes those accepted as Universal Cultural Heritage by UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. Since my childhood, I've had a life that has not been easy. I faced various difficulties. However, I continued to work and listen to my heart. I have neither broken with my tradition nor giving up universal values. The important thing is to be both local and universal, friends, to represent our culture around the world. If you think universally without breaking with your local identity, there's nothing you cannot achieve.